Hi, good morning. Welcome back to my channel. Oof, my hair is a mess. Sorry about that. So I have a pretty good live stream plan for us today. And believe it or not, we actually have some kind of new news that you may not have heard about yet that one of my mods brought to my attention this morning. So I just want to welcome everyone here. I tried to show a few comments before I came on and welcome everybody to the chat. But we have a lot to go over, so I think I'm just going to get right into today's live stream. And I'm going to tell you the different segments that we're going to be going over today. So, like I said, there is some not breaking news, but new news in the case. There was a podcast that was released 2 days ago, and it's a little bit of a different account that we've heard from people who know Bryan and we're around Bryan at WASU. One of his students came forward and she recorded like a 45-minute podcast. So I've linked it below in the description, and it was sent to me by Mikey. And I actually had an entire show plan, but when I started listening to this podcast, I kind of stopped everything and took notes because I want to tell you guys about it today. And we'll do that for the last segment. And when we get to it, what we'll kind of tie it into is maybe some differences in observational differences in behavior and temperament to BK than we've heard from other people, including in the new book by Bloom. I also want to talk about one other possible debunking or another statement that's been brought up in regards to Bloom's writings too, and it is in regards to the FBI following BK and knowing about BK before he got to the Poconos. And it's like a little bit of a pushback. And it's interesting because I haven't seen this in other places. I just saw it in one place on X, and I'm glad I bookmarked it when I saw it. We're also going to bring up a few some MSM, major news source articles that came out right after the arrest that just seemed to kind of go back against the narrative that we're all talking about now. One of them has to deal with exculpatory evidence. And then the other one is kind of just some totally different accounts of BK right after the arrest. I want to go over the comments section in my latest video regarding Xana. There is a ton of conversation going on right now about saying that sources, oh God, am I muted? I just got an alert. Oh, sorry. I'm like, great. Did I just say all that and I was muted? And then when I did my latest video on Xana, there were so many comments, people saying that there were contradictions, and trigger warning, because we are talking about true crime and we're talking right now about a crime scene. So trigger warning. People are saying that there were contradictions to where the bodies of Ethan and Xana were found. So we're going to go over that. And when they say contradictions, they say they mean law enforcement. So we're going to go over that too. And lastly, well, we'll start there. So why don't we start with this article that I read on X. So to go back to what we heard in the new book, it was alleged that due to the IGG, a match found that the FBI was aware of BK starting December 12th. And they started their trip from Pullman, Washington to the Poconos on the 15th. So at this time, suggested by the book, they were being trailed the whole time. And that those stops in Indiana were not part of the surveillance. They were drug interdiction stops, but it spooked the FBI, thinking that Indiana cops might have jumped them on the arrest. That was what was said in the book. But let me bring up my X page. Now, this was released. This is interesting. This came out as damage control right before the book. So I was waiting to get my copy at midnight, and I was on X just reading. And this is one of the counter arguments that came out just to push back on the book before it was even released. Oh my gosh, I feel like I look so ragtag today, guys. I'm sorry. I was really taking notes before I came on. I didn't really have time to get ready. All right, when we get to that in a second, let me go up to this bookmark right here and make sure you can see that. Okay. So these are the responses, and what this person who posted this on X did is they put the response next to the statement. So this says, the FBI has maintained its agents were not involved in the stops, including this week in response to questions about the incidents from the statement. Sandra Barker, a Salt Lake City-based FBI spokesperson, pointed out in past statements from the agency to underscore denials that they played any part in it. Contrary to the reports, the December 15 traffic stops conducted on the vehicle being driven by Bryan Kohberger in Indiana were not requested or directed by the FBI, the Indianapolis office said in January. Instead, the stops by the Indiana State Police and the Hancock County Sheriff's Office were separate drug interdiction checks, a spokesperson for the Sheriff's Office told the statement. That doesn't really contradict it, though. Let's go to the same. Unknown to either the father or the son, the FBI had been determined to keep a watchful eye on the Hyundai's track across America, he wrote. This is from Bloom's book. Only sources in law enforcement would confide with a bristle of embarrassment long after the car was pulled out of Pullman, Washington. They lost it, Bloom told the statement as he stands by reporting. The FBI doubled back, putting Bloom's assertion, which relied upon unnamed law enforcement sources. There are anonymous sources providing false information to the media, an FBI statement from February read. Publishing false information attributed to anonymous sources is not helpful in the case against Bryan Kohberger and the American public. Indiana police unaware of search for white Elantras. Indiana State Police Trooper Christopher Walls pulled over Bryan Kohberger's car December 15th about 10:50 a.m., just down the road from a prior stop by Sergeant Nick Ernsts with the Hancock County Sheriff's Office. Two departments told the Statesman Ernst's decisions to stop the white Elantra with the Washington's plates about 10 minutes earlier was simply part of his routine day. And productive drug checks were his exclusive assignment that morning. Hancock County Sheriff's Captain Robert Harris told the statements. His only task was to seek out and stop vehicles and look for drug trafficking and other interstate criminal activities, Harris said. The department spokesperson said by mail he did not see any other typical indicators to warrant further investigation for illegal drug activity. So he released the suspects without verbal warning for following another vehicle too closely. And then in this quote from the book, it says, on the day of the traffic stop, Sergeant Ernst did not know about any be on the lookouts for the Moscow Police Department, Harris said. The Hancock County Sheriff's Office spokesperson, he was not directed to stop the vehicle by anyone or to any knowledge the car was under any surveillance. In the emails of the spokesman, Bloom said he did not entirely convince the FBI wasn't already watching Kohberger, regardless of the agency's ongoing denials and the latest information of the drug interstate drug prevention stops by the Indiana State Police. Bottom line, it seems impossible to me that there was no tail on Kohberger, my source says, Bloom said. Nevertheless, I kind of feel that even when the case goes to trial, we'll never learn the full story of the events leading up to this arrest. And this wasn't the exact quote, so I have to apologize, you guys. I kind of botched that segment, but those are still really interesting articles that show the separation. 1 second. Oh, thank you. Oh, there we go. Be careful, Bloom can read your mind. I'm just looking. Oh, thank you, Christine. You know, I'm not going to. I have to apologize. I probably just apologize to Howard Bloom because I set up a segment and I didn't have the right information. All right, well, I'm just going to move on. I'm going to go back to my bookmarks because I had, I wanted to go into two mainstream media articles that came out after the arrest that I thought were like really interesting. This is a cover I wanted to show you guys that was circulating around right about the time when Bloom's book came out. And what I think is interesting about this cover is that there's just different things on it I wanted to show you. So this is, if you look up in this corner, it says caught on video. So this came out January 3rd of 2023. So if you remember, the arrest was the 29th of December. So this is just a few days later. And these are the things they said. Police body cam footage. And I'm looking at this and I keep looking at that and I wonder, I look at the jacket and the pants. Is this the Banfield runners? Is that what they're talking about? Or is this something else? Do you guys recognize that? Jeff, do you recognize it? Heather. I wonder why BK was riding so close to big vehicles. He was trying not to be seen by police parked along the side of the road. And one of them, one of the stops was for speeding, though, I found out. Or I read. I shouldn't say I found out. I haven't verified. That's a good point. We're definitely going to talk about change of venue. It's funny you say that, because I'll show you this. One of the things that I am going to show you guys in a second, I already have bookmarked right here, is this. And if you can see what I highlighted down there, just to go along with your comment, it says the defensive motion to change venue is currently set to be heard August 29th of 2024. If that motion is granted, the court anticipates that the trial dates will not change, although the location of the trial will change. So that's coming up, and I have so much to say on that, particularly pertaining to this new podcast that just came out. It's just interesting. This is like, the person giving the podcast is remaining neutral in their opinion, but is just so deeply affected by everything going on. And she only lived like 10, 12 minutes from the crime scene. And so she doesn't even live in Latah County. And she talks about how deeply she was affected just on a daily basis in the weeks following, in the months following that, so much so that she ended up changing her major from criminology to psychology. And so when we're talking about change of venue, just hearing the opinion of someone so close to it like that, who's remaining neutral, but their life is permanently affected by it. I mean, change of venue seems like it's coming. I know, it's so annoying. Well, I'm sure our pushing back on him is pretty annoying too. You know what I've been noticing too is we talk about how Howard Bloom, wrote about things and he uses his sources anonymously, and we all have these doubts because we can't see the receipts. But I see it more and more now that I've read the book, how we do the same thing to like News Nation and I don't know, Ashley Banfield or like Nancy Grace. We always rely on their sources and we always say, well, we heard this here, or this is on the record here. But what makes any of those major news stations better than Howard Bloom? When we sit here criticizing Howard Bloom, why are we putting any more weight into what they say than Howard Bloom? What makes them more trustable or trustworthy? Those are questions that they should ask themselves when they endorse somebody like Howard Bloom. Do you want us to put you under the same microscope that we're doing now? Jeff says, seems to me that Howard Bloom's series are less far-fetched than many that are out there. You know what? And that's right. That's actually interesting perspective. It's kind of like the pushback. Think about how many videos are out there right now tying the victim's father to alternative theories of retaliation. Like, how many theories are out there right now on YouTube? How many videos are out there, alternative theories that places blame on Xana's mother? Like, honestly, like, what difference is it that Howard Bloom does it too? I mean, it's hard to compare. He's on a larger platform, but it's the truth. Like, I guess the only way to combat it is to report on it yourself and do your best to report on it. Yeah, there's some really wild ones out there too. All right, let me get my list here. Got babbling with the chat. You know what? Since we have this up, let's just talk about change of venue right now and just transition into that. So all right. So a podcast came out 2 days ago. And I've linked it in the description. It's on Spotify. And it's called In Class with Kohberger. And the name of the girl is Cassie. She left her last name anonymous, but she wanted to just go on the record and tell her experiences. And they're a little bit different than what we've heard. I don't know, maybe I should bring up the podcast so you can see what it looks like while I'm reading about it. Why don't I do that? I'm going to pull up the podcast on Spotify. I mean, again, this was sent to me by Mikey this morning. So the name of the podcast itself is The Idaho Murders. And this episode, it's like a 46-minute episode. It came out June 26th, and it's called In Class with Kohberger. Everybody loves Philadelphia in this group, huh? Like everybody, including me. Miss Anonymous says, it doesn't surprise me. I said innocent since day one. Okay. So this is what it looks like. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. So in the podcast, they state that this episode is going to be less about the massacres and more about the human experience. And it definitely was. And I think that regardless of the outcome of the trial, this is something we're going to go back to and listen to this kind of untainted opinion before, final judgments are made after this trial. So this particular person, Cassie, was a criminology major, but after this event, she gave it up. She's now a psychology major, and she's transferred out of that campus to another. She's still going to WASU, but another branch in another area. And BK was one of 2 TAs that were in that class. And it was held in a lecture hall with about 300 students. So this wasn't like an intimate setting. It was quite a large class. And he was appointed a TA in the fall of 2022. And his same pathways, the same things he was doing there, were very similar to what other TAs were doing as well. So when the podcaster asked her, well, what exactly was this class about? And the answer that Cassie gave was, well, the class was about how to get away with murder, which was an interesting answer. And but basically they studied criminal behavior, and that was basically in that specific class. So it was pertaining to criminal behavior and how to get away with murder. And more specifically, they talk a lot about the law. And part of her thinks the BK still could be innocent. So she's not fully convinced yet, but she's also not fully convinced he's innocent either. She said mainstream media has been reaching out to her to make statements about BK, but she's really felt entrapped. She thought that it was them trying to get her to say he was a bad guy, and she just didn't agree to do a podcast until now. And so they start really going into a profile of BK, and it gets really interesting. Actually, before I get into this, I want to hook you. I want you guys to know like how interesting this is. I did take 2 quotes and wrote them down before we got started, because this is kind of a long review. So I want to make sure you know what you're going to hear out of this. So these are 2 quotes you're going to be interested in, direct quotes from the podcast. She said, when she was asked to describe him physically, she said he had a very clean look. He was always shaven. He had his hair done. He was always wearing sweaters and jeans. He always looked nice. He was tall, white, dark hair, very skinny, slim. He had a slim fit. He just always seemed like he was just there. He wasn't interacting with others. He was kind of just there. And I thought that was interesting because if you remember in the new book that Bloom put out, he said that one of the qualities that other people were saying about BK was that when he first got there, he was like overly introductive, and that it wasn't like in a friendly way, it was in an awkward way. And that's just kind of contradictory to what this one student is saying, who was close to him and saw him on a daily basis. She said that people have made him out to be a creep who had nothing going for him. But this is her exact quote. She says, but like he was almost done with his life. He was at his goal. He had so much of a future ahead of him. And said that he didn't, to say that he didn't is straight up lies, is what she said. It's not like he's a weird outsider dude who didn't have anything going for him. She said he was at his goal. He was at a place where they all wanted to be. And she said she couldn't even imagine being where he was. He had a future, and she really wanted to impress that. So I'm reading that to you because that account of BK kind of flies in the face of the anonymous source, you know, in Bloom's book, or one of them at least. So let me continue with my review of the podcast. So Cassie said for the first few weeks he was very silent, and Cassie said he was silent, but he was noticeable, and she often watched him. And she really emphasized that. She's saying she didn't say he was he was attractive, but she was saying he was noticeable. And compared to the other TAs, they were quite engaged, but he was kind of not quite as open as a TA. He wasn't into the class, and he seemed bored a lot of the time. That's my words, not hers. And he was kind of in his own little world, she said. So the podcaster asked her what was noticeable about him because of the description I just read you. And she said that one second. Turn my page. She said that basically it was his eyes, and she said that, you know, when class got boring, it was a very intense class, and there was a lot to take in. And when things started getting boring, her eyes just immediately went to BK. And so she didn't see him have any, you know, a lot of friends in class. She said he was a closed off TA, meaning he was just, others were open, but he was more of, you know, closed off. When I hear that, I interpret that as somebody who's kind of street smart. You know, if you're closed off, you're not just letting everybody in, you're waiting, you know, to find the right people. But it's open to interpretation, I guess. She said she had office time with him. So she did office time with him personally twice. She even would have continued, but she said it just wasn't helpful because it was more of like a student group. It wasn't like one-on-one with him, although she said she could have had one-on-one instruction from him. It was a group setting, and everybody just kind of sat there quietly working on their projects. So it just wasn't for her. So she didn't go back. But she said she never felt awkward or uncomfortable. He would just keep to himself on his laptop. And then the podcaster asked her, well, did you have like a sixth sense or like a spidey sense about him? And she said, did you notice something was off or anything about him? And Cassie says, no. They asked, was he just like an ordinary guy? And Cassie says she never got that sense. And she said there was one incident where a student sat down next to her because it was a big class and nobody had assigned seats. So one day she sat down next to someone new, and the guy sat next to her, and he said, and it was her first time meeting her. She said, doesn't this guy kind of give you weird vibes? And then he repeated it, and he said to her, it's in his eyes. And but she said to her personally, she got no weird vibes. And she said the days leading up to the event, everything was ordinary. And she asked her, was there a difference in grading before and after the incident? And she said she did notice there was it seemed like he was better grading after the incident, but it wasn't like super pronounced. She said people did label him as sexist, but again, something she never witnessed. And the podcaster also started asking about the survey, because I guess the survey was talked about in class, or people have said that the survey was talked about, and she says she never remembers reading or seeing any survey in that class. Now, the survey I heard about was from DeSales University, so I don't know if the podcaster had like the wrong information, or if there's something else I don't know about, or if people were saying that he brought up the DeSales University survey in this class. I don't know, but either way, this person who attended class regularly says she never saw or read a survey. The podcaster did go on to say that they reached out to WSU, and WSU did not want to confirm or deny anything in the podcast. They just wanted to make no statement. She said that after the crime, the school's response was kind of interesting and maybe different than what you would think. She said that she really didn't even realize how close the crime was to her until Thanksgiving break started approaching, and people were constantly calling and checking on her, telling her to get out of there. And that's when it started hitting home that this was only, a short ways away from her. But because of the school's attitude, she didn't quite see like how maybe close the situation was to her. And those were her words, not mine. The school's attitude she describes as, this has nothing to do with us. This is none of our business. They implied no curfew, and they encouraged people to continue with their classes. She said she remembered looking at, after the arrest, she remembers going back and looking at all of the emails that were sent to her by BK. And she said that was in the following weeks. And she looked at notifications. She could see edits, notifications. And she remembers looking at those like, wow. She remembers where she was when she found out BK was arrested. She was with one of her fellow criminology students in their dorm. And they're like, you got to look at this. And that's when they saw him on the news. And she just said so that's why kind of she was going back and looking at those edits and those notes. And she said then in the following weeks, they just all disappeared. So I think that goes back to, this was another, I was going to bring something up on X, but I'm not going to. We keep hearing that BK was let go for behavioral issues from WASU before he was arrested. And I think that's been debunked for me, because when I see he may have had some sort of disciplinary actions going on, but as far as his resignation letter, that wasn't, or his letter letting him go, that wasn't actually signed until the 30th. So the day after his arrest. And the thing is if you go back to the search warrant, part of it is to search his office. And if he had been let go before he left, why would his things still be in his office? Like, why would he have been let go before the 12th of December when he left, or the 15th of December when he left, and have everything in his office on the 30th where they put in that letter? That doesn't make sense. He would have had his office cleaned out by then, you would think. So I do think that although there may have been disciplinary action, I don't think he was let go. And also, he was planning on returning to his apartment and to school. And one thing that also I found out is that if he lost his TA position, he would lose his scholarship to the criminal justice program. So he had some tenure with this position. And if he lost the position, he wouldn't be able to return to school. So if he lost the position, why wouldn't they be moving all his stuff back? So you see what I'm saying? It just, to me, it doesn't, or maybe to you, you might feel differently, but for me, it was an after the fact thing that he got let go. Well, a lot of people are commenting. Hi, Angel D. And hey, Nina and David. Got a few new people in chat. Hold on. Didn't they say he was wearing a mask over his nose and mouth? What did his hair look like then? Or was it covered too? Confused. City girl. I think his hair was covered, but I don't know. This girl was one of his students. But maybe I misspoke and I can clarify. Let me know in the chat. DM says, DM can't say what color eyes he has, but has seen his eyebrows. I'm going to star that because I have Heather, who's in the chat, sent me a really interesting article. Again, I just showed you that People magazine cover. We were talking about early articles right after the arrest. Heather sent me one from News Nation. And okay, it kind of echoes, Howard Bloom's sources, but it's interesting and it changes the demeanor in which we've heard Dylan's accounts. So we'll come back to that. I put a star next to it. Oh yeah, this is a good point, Heather. They didn't even take his picture down until many days into January 2023. Jeez. And then we have a couple links to Nina and Jeff's channels. I don't know if Twizzle is here, but I'm sorry, but he had too much to lose after getting sober. I personally don't think he would risk it, just from my perspective as an addict and working with clients. And I think that the few times where you hear this girl get passionate is that one incident where she's like, that quote that I read you, how can we sit there and people say that he had no future? She's like, every kid in that class wanted to be where he was. He met his goal. He was there. He was at the end of this journey that they were all starting. And the work and the time he had spent on it was, it was admirable. More than that, it was their goal. I don't know what prompted that comment to Jeff Angel D, but I'm not going to put it up. The shape of bushy eyebrows can probably be seen in low light, but the color of her eyes would be difficult. I would tend to agree. I think all eyes would kind of look black in low light, even blue eyes. I just got an update from Robert, you guys. That's funny. I haven't heard from him since the last time I posted. Robert, if you're watching, we're all saying hi. So you guys know last we heard he had just gotten out of the hospital, and he says he just wanted to give an update that he's going for some tests this week, but it sounds like he's good. So that's such good news. And maybe in a few weeks, we'll see Robert back on YouTube again. Robert, such good news. We'll have to share it with the rest of you too. Jeff says, I gotta say, I don't see Ellie risk their careers over this crime any more than we'd imagine BK risking it. Well said. Jeff. Oh, I see. Angel Diaz. Yeah, we all noticed you were a mod over at DTS. Congratulations. Moving up in the world, Jeff. Guess my wrench wasn't good enough. No, just kidding. Miss Anonymous says, the lack of evidence makes me think he's innocent even more. I know you're playing with Jeff. And Robert, if you're listening, we got some shout outs to you. Wait, I guess I'm slacking. Respectful Guilter now. My title is growing. Respectful Guilter. Stop with the labels, you guys. I think there's fake Guilters. There's fake Guilters and there's fake Kohbergers. I think we're all real here, but there's definitely fakers. I was listening to, I caught a little bit about Tommy's live last night, and I can't remember who was talking. I want to say it's, I can't remember her name. It's like Mama something, the 1111 True Crime Channel. And she said something really interesting. And I don't know where she got it. I tried Googling it afterwards. So if you guys know about it, please let me know. But she said that during the Stephen Avery case that there were like paid people on YouTube to make fake stories or like control the narrative. And she said that she didn't believe, it might not have been her, it was somebody on panel. So forgive me if I'm misquoting. I'm just trying to pass on the information I'd never heard before. And I kept listening. I like rewound it a couple times. But during that Stephen Avery case, apparently there were people paid to control the narrative. And this person said they saw the receipts. They saw paperwork on it. Whether it's true or not, of course, we all have to check things out for ourselves. But I kind of tossed that around in the back of my mind. Like, who's the plant? Who's the IDAHO4 plant? It's hard to have a wrench after being blocked by so many wrenches in the past. Sometimes for just saying hello. What happens when you block someone? I don't know if I'm actually blocked anywhere, because somebody showed me a picture in Discord that they couldn't even get onto the channel. I thought being blocked just meant that you couldn't like comment, but I don't know. Oh, Jeff did. Who? What are you blocked from now, Heather? That I don't know about. I'm still convinced it's not my microphone and not my voice. Hey, Jackie. And Angel D says, I just like hearing everything about the case. I wait until trial before I attempt to make a decision. I so am on the same page with you. Yeah. How, it seems like you're putting more weight into your abilities if you're forming a decision beforehand. I do think that there is some responsibility for us that if we have to have some faith in the people that are running our system, that they're not completely corrupt. How can we even make a decision until we see everything? So, and I'm not dismissing the things that I've seen in these hearings that are just drawing so many questions, but it's like all goes in circles because we don't have unsealed information. Yeah, they're called damage control agents. But I mean, I would love if somebody knows about this whole incident with Stephen Avery, where there were actual people that were paid to do this on YouTube. Because you keep thinking like nobody has the time to do that. You know, somebody would have to do it for a job. So if somebody knows about this, I'd love to know more. Like I said, I tried Googling it and I didn't get very far with information. But if it's out there, I'd love to know. Heather, I'm not putting up that comment. Oh, Robert. So glad you're here. This is Robert's first appearance on YouTube in a few weeks. So Robert, we're so glad to see you. Please, everybody kind of show Robert some love in the live chat, but maybe jump onto his channel and let's get him back in the algorithm and get his next video to get some good views. Okay, so Jeff says that Jeff is the expert. Jeff says the easiest way to tell if you're blocked is to try and send a super chat. It'll say unable to send. I thought this was important. It says it's from CVS telling me I have a 40% off coupon. Sorry, I'll turn off my ringer. And then, oh, Robert's, you're getting a lot of love. Oh, don't, you guys. Be nice to Daniel in my chat. Maybe he'll invite me back if my chat isn't so. Let's say nice things about DTS. Detective Johnson. I don't, oh my gosh, you guys. I want to know more about David's comment right there. I have never blocked you ever, Jeff H. Thanks for clearing that up, Angel D. Yes, you have a wrench. Get back to the case. Wait, what? I'm going to look around info probably. Thank you. I appreciate that. Always appreciate that. I hope you're in my Discord, I think, right? You can send us anything there. And you can also be shadow banned. What do you mean? Like if you search for them, you can't find them? Oh, what wish? I'm trying not to put up other creators' names in the comments. Trying to be a better creator. And of course, every comment has to do with another creator. You're blocked from him. I hope I'm not blocked from him too, Jeff. Oh, thank you, 12. 12, I have to ask, every time I see your profile picture, I think you're in like a Kempo suit or something. Are you in martial arts? That's what I think when I see that. Hold on. Oh, good. Look me up, official Swamp. I'll drop an invite before we leave into the chat for anyone who wants to join the Discord. I don't have membership right now, so I'm just offering the Discord if you want to, you know, be able to like direct message me or something like that. And then when I do get my memberships, I think I might get my memberships back next week. Anyway, I'm hoping. And if that's the case, then after that, I'll do a members only. I'll let it be members only Discord, but I'll let whoever, you know, obviously whoever's in there can stay. Yeah, and you get suppressing the algorithm. Yep. This is what I want. One thing that is learned is the areas of mistakes people make in crimes. We're getting to that. Okay, that's another thing, a big problem this girl has with the case against BK right now. I should probably just get into the rest of this. Where I left off with you guys was I was talking about how WSU and their attitudes towards the crime. And their attitude, again, just to reiterate, is that actually, well, their attitude was basically like, this isn't any of our business. Continue with your classes. There's no shelter in order. And she felt so removed from the crime. It wasn't until Thanksgiving break and people calling her that she really felt that she might be, in a dangerous position. And then, so anyway, the podcaster reached out to WSU after they mentioned them to see if they had a statement, and they didn't want to say anything. Okay, so no, actually, where I left off was when BK's emails all got erased a couple of weeks after his arrest. So if he was fired, think about this: all of his notes, his edits, his emails, all of his notifications were still there for her to read until weeks afterwards. So if his account was deleted, why were they still there? I have been playing a lot of World of Warships to keep myself busy. That sounds stress-free, right? Go for a walk in nature, Robert. Chad, I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. Why did she leave out the fact that his future was no longer ahead of him since he lost his teaching assistant position? He lost his role as a TA shortly before the murders were committed. And Chad, if you have some receipts for that, seriously bring them to the table. Like I said, I try not to take a bias. I try to look at all sides of the coin, but I have not seen any evidence that he was fired until the 30th of December. There was some talk about disciplinary action, but I still didn't see receipts for it. It was one particular student who made the rounds in a bunch of podcasts, and this particular student said she just wants to say what she saw. She didn't see that. So totally not contradicting you, just want to know where you got that information so that we can have it too. Lifetime. Oh, I'm glad you guys are friendly fighting in the chat. Heather says, no, he actually did not. I wonder if you're talking about what I just talked about. And she said, so Heather's going to send me something, so I'll keep on the lookout for it. And, okay. And then Jeff says, I'm interested to hear from those two professors named at the bottom of BK's research question project. Was that the research question project for DeSales? Or like this podcaster is saying that some people were saying they were talking about at WASU? John, I keep meaning to put a wrench in front of your name. I'm going to write your handle down and do that because I like how you came up with that name, Swampers. Okay. MCSMITH. Gotcha. Angel D says, I don't know why everyone is being so nasty to each other over the Idaho case. It's got very uncomfortable to be in certain chats these days. Yes, Angel, we know. Robert, could Dylan have seen the figure step by from the angle of the gap in the door? Did the figure it out in the end? Carlos says, Angel D, I agree. And then Robert's answering my question. The DeSales Teach Me How to Be a Criminal Research Questionnaire Project. Sorry, I'm snarky after 2 coffees. I was thinking before I got on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I drank so much coffee. I'm taking those notes and my hand is like shaking. I'm like, I shouldn't be going live right now. But here we are. And as you can see, that's probably, my jitter is probably what messed up the first segment. Voters are blinded by love. Now let's keep our chat clean. Okay, glad you're happy about that. What? Oh, Angel D, just like you just lurk in the chats. No, you're a lurker. I was watching somebody's live stream. It was like one of those YouTube crime, the Kramas, you know, the true crime drama beefs going on. It was between a group of girls. I'll let them remain nameless. And it was really heated in April. I had a lot of free time on my hands. I was suspended from YouTube. So I'm watching their beef. And like they'd come on every day and they'd be like, or every time they came on, they'd be like, okay, guys, go ahead, lurkers, do your block check. And then every once in a while you'd see one of their adversaries write block check in the live chat to see if they were blocked. It was really funny. It was funny to me. Notice of termination on December 19th, received letter and trespass on December 30th. Have not seen that. I actually have a copy of the letter. Let me pull that up on X real quick. I'm not contradicting you guys, just one, no more. That's all. Just, here we go. Oh, please tell me I saved it. And of course I didn't. Look at my general bookmarks. Hold on. Oh shoot, I don't have it, but I'd be interested in that second date. Nina, that second date. And I know you have I know you have a good file on the case. So if you have the December 19th termination in writing somewhere, something that was signed or dated the 19th, because even if it was backdated and said the 19th and the December 30th letter, like I still wouldn't necessarily. Oh, you sent it to me? Hold on. Got an army of fact checkers here on YouTube. That's my dog snoring. Just oh, you just came from Dinky's piano? Hold on. Well, I don't know, but Heather just sent me something. Let me see what Heather's got. Looks like this is the search warrant, or what is this, the PCA? Hold on. Oh, this is the search warrant. Okay. I have something on the search warrant too today, because I have a subscriber named Bryan who sent me a snippet from the search warrant, and they're like, do you think this would qualify for a Frank's hearing? And I'm going to be honest, I don't know. Like, I wanted to bring it to you guys and see what you thought. He brought up a really good point, but I digress. So I'm just going to read to you from the search warrant what it says about his office. This is 2 paragraphs long. I'll be brief. So based on the above information, I am also seeking a search warrant for Kohberger's office at Washington State University campus. I have probable cause to believe evidence of crimes committed at the King Road residence will be found at Kohberger's office located on the WSU campus at the Wilson Short Hall, number 12, Pullman, Washington. It was common for individuals to keep documents, records, information, this type described above in their office of Kohberger's office in the other locations identified where evidence should be found. Based off of the WSU website, Kohberger's office is inside Wilson Short Hall. Oh, that was the other thing, is his photograph. I do have all the notes from this podcast written down, but his photograph stayed up on the website. It stayed up at the school. Like, she just said it didn't appear to be someone who was the subject of disciplinary action. Anyway, I'll keep going and not interject myself into the search warrant. Excuse me. All right, starting. So we're looking for documents, records, information of the type of evidence that could be found. Based off of the WSU website, Kohberger's office is inside the Wilson Short. That's my camera blocker. I'm so scared of getting hacked. I like put a piece of sticky note on my camera. The address of Wilson Short Hall is 475 Glen Terrell Hall, Pullman, Mass, blah, blah, blah. Wilson Short Hall is a 4-story brick building housing with multiple offices. Kohberger's office is number 12. Number 12 is a student's office shared by Kohberger and 2 fellow WSU students. And then they give their names, which I'm not going to give here. Kohberger has been confirmed to be one of the students who utilized the office. On December 29th, 2022, investigators visited the office of Kohberger, named the office, and Kohberger's name was on the outside. Based off of that information, I am also seeking a search warrant for Kohberger's office on the Washington State University campus. It is common for individuals to keep documents, records, and information of that type described above in their office, and Kohberger's office is the other location identified where evidence could be found. And then I declare under penalty of perjury and pursuant to the laws of the state of Idaho, Washington, Pennsylvania, and this is foregoing true and correct. So I don't know. That was really quick follow-up. Thanks, Heather. Oh, there's another. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So she highlighted the important line that I read right there, which is on December 29th, 2022, investigators visited the office of with Kohberger's name on the outside of it. Just interesting stuff, you guys. And no evidence was found. Thank you. Miss Anonymous follows up. Okay, so let's keep going. And then Mina, I'm going to my email right now because I think you're sending me the counter argument to that, which is the date that has the 19th on it. I don't know if you're sending it to my email or Discord. Let me just check Discord. All right, well, to be continued. Let's go on with my notes from the podcast because I think you guys are going to be really interested, especially at the end. Like, I mean, I know I do interviews. I don't know if I would have thought of these. She let the girl talk and she just asked like the perfect questions for the tone of the conversation. 1 second, I need to stop my camera for 1 second. Got some stuff going on. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's it. Okay, so I guess I don't know. So if he was, you're right. If he was fired, I don't think it would be. If they started disciplinary, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree just because. I mean, I know obviously no other place is the same, but the larger places I've ever worked, when I've seen people let go, even if it was like for perfectly legitimate reasons like downsizing or something like that, like it wasn't for a disciplinary action, there is an immediate call to take your stuff out of the office. You lose access to your accounts, your emails. There's no grace period. And that's to prevent, God forbid, a disgruntled employee doing something to the system. So they don't want to let you have, like, okay, I'll give another. I worked at the same corporation for like 10 years before I moved out here. It was very close to 10 years. And when I left, I lost access to my email immediately. Because what would happen if I followed up with somebody under my business email and I didn't work there? I mean, that's a huge liability for the company. And the only records I had access to were to go into HR and look at my portal that might have told like my time history, my work history, educational history, all that stuff. And when I left there, I resigned, and it was still that way. I lost access to everything, even, my badge that swipes me in, it all went inactive. And so I don't know. Wouldn't it be interesting if we could talk to somebody from WSU who has ever been let go or fired, find out what the process was for them? And we have nothing but time in our hands until trial. We don't even have a hearing for 6 weeks. My aunt worked for Case Western for 30-some years, one of the best colleagues in Cleveland. If someone's fired, they act immediately. Records show that after the initial altercation with the professor on September 23rd, Mr. Kohberger met with university officials to discuss norms of professional behavior. Absolutely. And it's why I think that if there was tension in the car in Howard Bloom's book, I keep thinking, like, could that be because it's possible that not only could he lose his job, but he could lose his school, because he could lose his scholarship if he lost that job. So it was definitely a tumultuous time. But talking to someone about a problem is standard. You have to do that. You can't just, I don't think you can just fire someone. So it's part of the process. So maybe they started some sort of process, but I'm talking like a robot. I need shit. And then Jeff says, when did BK arrive in Washington, Ohio area? That's up for controversy. So Steve G has said a lot of things, but he went on the record and he said that he was there for a year beforehand. BK's mother was part of some sort of, I think it was like a knitting subreddit forum. And she was said that her baby was going out. And I think she wrote that in May of 2022 or something like that. My baby's leaving in a few weeks or something. It's up for debate. I do think that from the accounts that I've heard from my sources, which literally have no more reliability than Howard Bloom's sources, but I'm allowed to use them if Howard Bloom's allowed to use them. My sources tell me that he was out there for Kaylee's birthday, that they all kind of saw each other. I'm pulling up a picture. That's why I'm talking slowly. At the Coug that night that Kaylee came and wrote her name on the wall. But I don't know. Oh, True Crime Cult is taking off. Thanks for stopping by, Robert. We'll update everyone that you sound good and you're relaxing and taking some Robert time. And we're just happy. We can't wait to see you back on here. Your creative ideas. So Jackie says June. And what's Kaylee's birthday is the beginning of June, I believe. June 5th or something, June 15th. No, I don't think they'll fire him over Zoom. And then Angel D says, that's true. You can't beep or swipe in without a key card in most places with security. Interesting. ID in the glove, in the box. That might be one reason to collect an ID. I mean, we've thought it was the ID of someone, but also the defense has clearly said no connection. But if we're talking about an ID, that might have been a real tip-off to the police if his ID and badge were working. Maybe that was the ID they found inside of the glove in the box. And that's how they knew he was still working there. And then Amanda says, Kohberger's termination effective December 30th, 2020. So I guess. Okay. Oh, right. That's right. So I said the 30th, but you're saying 31st. But that was my understanding too. Right. And then Jeff says, the whole conversation on BK losing his teaching job has me buying a subscription to the New York Times. What do you mean? Don't do that. Who owns the New York Times? Is it Rupert Murdoch? Drop it in the chat. And then Amanda says his name would have still been. Watts the Obsession is also adamant the EC was on the bed when discovered on the trigger warning, you guys. And so that goes against the door theory. When we get to that segment, you guys, I know it's going to spark a conversation with you because, I mean, there was like 22 comments under this. It was just, people have a lot to say about Xana. Heather just sent me something else too. Let me just see what it is. Oh, this is the supplement to the okay, I'm not quite, I don't know what this is. I will get back to that. I don't want to give dead air while I read it. So hold on. Some people, some employers are at will and they don't have to give a reason or a warning. That's true. So you're right. You wouldn't necessarily have to have disciplinary action. However, I agree, Miss Anonymous, but in an institution like the university, I would imagine that disciplinary action, there has to be things on record to enforce things. So for instance, just using something minor, let's say somebody, not a tenured teaching assistant, but just someone who like maybe works in the lunchroom. They want to get fired for being late. If you show up late to work one day, it's not likely that the employer has free will to fire you for it. There's probably some written HR policy that you have to start with conservative measures, a warning, a writing up, a talking to, because what they don't want to do is open themselves up for liability and just go flippant firing people. You know, there's typically some sort of conservative measure. So if there's a problem, it has to be documented. And that's why at work, when you're running into a problem with somebody, it's sometimes better to just err on caution and get it on record with your HR or your manager somewhere in writing. Because if that person continuously gives you a problem on the third or the fourth time, if you never documented it and then you go to HR, you're starting from the beginning. That's your first record of a problem. You know, you have to have courage. And when somebody does, you know, so anyway, that's what I'm saying is companies can't just typically let somebody go off of the one incident in one words of one person or something like that, because it's written in their HR policies to stop them from, you know, a wrongful, there are protections for the employees. And also, I've also heard he has tenure. Sorry. So I mean, I don't know exactly how that works with him, but I do know he has some sort of protections from just being freely fired. And I'm speaking just completely my opinion and guessing. I don't actually know. Could have been somebody else's activity. I heard that recently too, but I haven't dove into it. I heard it on somebody's channel that there were missing supplies from the lab. Well, I actually will back up Watts the Obsessed in that one and just say I've read with my own eyes Ethan's sister-in-law. Well, Ethan's sister-in-law said they were in the bed, and didn't Ethan's mom said she said they were in the room, and then the last thing she said is on the bed. But then Christy had an interview, Christy G, and she said that Ethan was blocking the door, and it was told to her by early accounts from Hunter J. The person on X that's known as Gigi is the one who got these protected cards from WSU. Records. And then Chad, I kind of picked up on that too. Okay, so Chad, we're back to the podcast now. This awesome podcast, again, is linked in the description. Go listen to it for yourselves. It just gives you a different sense and feeling about BK. But she says, it sounds more like she had a crush on him to me. That is, anyways, Kiki. You should show all the people that had negative things. You should show all of the people that had negative things to say about Bryan. I don't know if there was. I mean, I honestly don't know. There was one person she brings up who gives the account of him being creepy. And then I don't know if it was the same person or if it was a separate person, but there was one other student that was speaking out publicly. If there were more, let me know. But as far as I know, there was only one other student, male, that was going around. And I did report on him at the beginning of the podcast because it was in the news at the time. But yeah, that's a good point. I should bring up the other student and his opinions on it. But this is fresh and it's in the news. And I would say I've brought up Howard Bloom's theories enough. Maybe this is just a little bit of a counter argument to some of the Howard Bloom things I've reported on, because I've reported on the pool party. I've reported on Michael Kohberger's feelings, quote unquote, about Bryan. I've just reported on a lot of things. The FBI agent's feelings about Bryan. So, I mean, yes, I'm not giving both sides of this argument because I haven't pulled up what the other person said, but I do give other sides of the argument in general that this is one interesting thing, just slightly different from the narrative we've heard. And there's more to say on it too. But I agree with you, Chad. You're right. He's a grad student that also teaches. Those records are protected. And then Becky says, read the documents from WSU on TAs. He has the right to appeal. That's a good point too. There would be an appeals process. I wonder if that comes before or after a letter of termination. Oh, and then Nina's getting the paperwork on the 19th. And we'll get this all together, that since we have information on it, like Chad said, there's another student that has arguments. Nina says she has paperwork on the 19th. Maybe we can put together another live stream and really dive deep into this a little bit more. And then Chad says, he was supposedly even kicked out of a restaurant and barred from coming back because of the way he treated the female staff. And they put a nice little note on their POS system. And I have reported on that many, many times. I particularly think criminal profiling is one of the most interesting parts of the true crime podcast that I do. And just not on BK, just in general. And I am always bringing up that article from his time at DeSales University. And again, I think it's like the one time I actually have something as a counter argument to bring up, because I never really have anything behaviorally to say in defense of Bryan. There's just so many people out there, saying things. But to just elaborate on what Chad is talking about, at DeSales University, Bryan, like many men his age, would get out of school and work, and he would go to a local pub and have a few beers. And he kind of displayed the same behavior that we've heard of him when he had his, before he had his weight loss, his major transformation, that he could approach women and he would give like a canned line, like, you want to hang out? And it was disturbing to the girls, and they'd run the other way. Well, we see in this article, it was almost like this person was trying to give a grown-up version of that. So he would approach a waitress and say, can I have your number? but in like a fort, just like in a, like, they said that it made them very uncomfortable. And if they answered him and said no, he would get angry. And it wasn't like a one-off thing. Like, it happened so frequently, they ended up putting his name into the POS system. So when he came in and they put his credit card, you give your credit card so you can walk around the pub, something would come up next to his name. And the very last time he went in there, the owner goes up to him and says, he had one beer, and he goes, Bryan, just, I just want to make sure, we're not going to have a problem today. Everything's going to be all set. And he said that Bryan was so offended that he was saying that he had acted like he had no idea what he was talking about. He was deeply offended. He finished his beer and he left. Now, I'm going to say, if somebody was to say that to me or any of us, I mean, what do you think you would do? You'd be really offended and you leave. So that was the proper response, at least to that. But I mean, the only other thing I can think of is it obviously was significant enough for this person to speak up. But I also think back to, I've bartended for many years. And if there was a computer system where I was working and there was a obnoxious regular patron like that, they would be in that system with a warning for like a new person there, or, a DJ, or like I don't know, like there'd be something in that. It wouldn't be uncommon, and it wouldn't be someone that we necessarily thought was like, crazy. Just people note behaviors in those systems. But anyway, that's a great point. Sorry, I'm talking so much. Meaning that people can be fired for no reason at all. I just don't necessarily know if it's that situation, though, Angria. Did you have another comment? Am I only giving half your comment? Yeah, I mean, I know people can be fired for no reason at all. I just don't think in his tenured situation that he necessarily could be. I don't know, though. It is a guess. Still behind on comments. And 12, who studied a lot of these crime scene photographs and paperwork, and this is his what he's going to school for. He says he believes Ethan was found at the door. It's very sad. It's hard to talk about. Thank you, Angel D. That's interesting. I've never heard anybody say that, Richie Rich. In my opinion, Ethan used the ladder to go in the window and go in. I've never heard about Ethan using the ladder. What if that was a habit of his? I think his friends would know about it if anyone was willing to talk. Rights shall include freedom to pursue educational goals, freedom of expression and inquiry, right to privacy and confidentiality of records, right to due process established in the Student Code of Conduct Handbook. That's a good place. I could look in the student code or in the student or teacher code. I don't know. There's probably some information on that. Richie, Hunter used the ladder. What? Really? So the ladder has been in. No, I wasn't sure, because I've seen people like up on the roof, like it's the second floor roof there. I just kind of assume they climbed from the third story down, like out one of the windows there. But it would make more sense if they probably used the ladder. But if you've heard that, I would love to see that too, Nina. If you have that, a receipt anywhere of Hunter saying that he used the ladder. Oh, okay. Wait, the ladder to get in that morning? Or just like that was his thing? Like he used to climb into Xanda's room with a ladder? I hope not. That's interesting. There are many people who say they couldn't believe for a second that BK could do this. I think that's interesting. Look at this. When I was pulling up that information on X and I had all of my bookmarks, Let me go back. There's this right here. And this is a letter. Let me make sure you guys can see that. Let me get myself small so you can see it better. So this woman recently, I never brought it up just because I don't find anything that people were bringing it up to make fun of this girl. And I honestly didn't feel that this was anything to make fun of her for. They were calling her a fangirl. But from what we can see of the letter, she's just reflecting your sentiment in the chat where it says, this is the first time in my life I've ever written a letter to anyone involved in this type of case. I just wanted to let him know there are millions of people that support him. And I just thought that was interesting and just aligned with what you're saying. There are many people who said they couldn't believe for a second that BK could do this. It's so confusing. And 12 says, I bet the girls on the 3rd floor were in winter clothes. It was cold outside, and the heater was out, supposedly, or turned off. Because it depends on whose sources you want to believe. Hunter wasn't happy about not... Yeah, I don't know. I've heard that go 2 ways. People are upset. They feel that at his age, and with so many worship leaders at that service, maybe, some of the negativity could have been left out. But I think that the criticism really happened because that memorial service happened before we knew what was going on. And we were still looking for a suspect. So everybody we looked at with jaded eyes. But I've also heard from other people who are involved in law enforcement that Hunter looked like someone who had been traumatized from something they'd seen. They looked like someone who had just seen a gruesome murder scene. Because he didn't make eye contact, and the way they were looking down. So I've heard it interpreted 2 different ways. I wanted to show you guys. I'm wearing wool socks today too. They're like huge wool socks. Look at that. The way BK's attorneys treat him, the sheriff smiles at him when they leave / enter the court. Then the opposite stories of mainstream media that make him out to be a monster. It's crazy, in my opinion. And then Zondi says, do you think this murder is related to drugs and the dealings of being an informant? I can tell you this. Even in the most latest publication, well, other than the podcast I'm reviewing with you guys, and just so you know, I have so much more of this podcast to review. I have 3 more pages of notes, 4 more pages of notes, 3.5. Even in Howard Bloom's book, I mean, even though he is saying they've got the right guy and his opinion and all of that, he's still looking for drug connections. So, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I mean, I really have no opinion, but it's just interesting how even this person who could, by any stretch of the imagination, be called a guilter at this point, he's looking for drug connections. He brought up EB and D and saying, could they have been at the pool party? Could BK have relapsed and was looking for D's? And then he mentions the house. So it's interesting, even in this spin that seems to be for mainstream media to, pre-convict BK before the trial. Even then, they're still bringing up these drug narratives. Okay. Stacey Chapin told some major info in November interview. Unfortunately, it is edited and cut out. Wouldn't be surprised. It's interesting to go back in time and what people either changed or maintained comments, of course, in my opinion, but following the non-verified. Perhaps your chat has recalled info. Always thinking. And then 12 says, no drag angle. Did they use possibly, were they dealers? Not. Just if I was to make a surface observation, I would agree. American Princess. Thank you, SR. My iPad died. I was surprised Ethan was found. Let's see. I was watching the sales video on YouTube channel. Looks like students get their hands on experience with crime scene investigation. You can learn to be a cop or criminal if you think about it. Yes, good point. I was always thinking the same thing, because in the article that I read about the practice house, one of the things they always did was they were taught to look for the red herring. They said criminals, they don't talk about calling cards, they talk about red herrings. Like every crime scene needs a red herring. And I always was like, wow, is the knife sheath meant to throw people off or give bad evidence? Like, that was just a thought. Did you guys hear about the one sister that was the star in the low budget film that had to do with the student? Yeah. It was before the stabbings. There was one released that week called The Killer Clones that did appear to be eerily similar to the, have eerie similarities, but I don't think she starred in that one. I think they're two different movies. Could be mistaken. I know how to not get caught. Yeah, I've heard that too. So like I need to call or email Michael Alderio Photography. If you're watching, Michael, please get hold of me. There are some people suggesting it's because Ellie made the kids informants, etc. The cartel learned it and unalived them as a signal for others. I mean, I don't know if the second part of what you're saying, but the first part, that first sentence, that Ellie made the kids informants, was kind of touched on in a really cool video that I showed in my last live stream by Michael Alderio Studios. Although what he was saying is not necessarily that these kids were made informants, but that Keely had gone to the police department to report a missing person. And she might have looked like she was an informant because she filled out a police report and everything like that. I'm pretty sure that's the sister that they spoke out against him. And we don't even know if that's true. I mean, some things are definitely not true that he wrote about, like people being in the trees, or maybe there were people in the trees. I don't know. I know how to not get caught. Work for organized crime masquerading as the government. You said it, not me. Oh, okay. Thank you for leaving the link. Heather, could you please, if you have a chance, send that to me in Discord? I can't follow the links from the live stream. I don't think I'm going to do it today, but I'm going to continue the subject because I still have to get through the rest of this podcast review because there's more information that you guys are going to be interested in that happened. Freedom is everything. Kill someone and end up incarcerated for the rest of your life? Nah, ain't worth it. The question is, can some people resist? Some people, I've heard so many times since doing this true crime podcast, did things to try and get caught because they couldn't stop themselves. Maybe that 1 ounce of guilt or feeling still left in a sociopath. I'm just talking about unalivers. I'm not saying anyone in specific. Yeah, I dropped a link for 12. Go check him out. He's going live today. Chef says, interesting theory. Kind of romantic to have your man show up at your bedroom window. Thanks, Richie Rich. It wasn't her man. It was Hunter Johnson. More Philly love. I love Philadelphia. Some of the things I've done there are so fun. One of the most fun things I've ever done in Philly, I highly recommend, is going to a 76ers game. They're great. Their stadium is so good, and it's fun. It's really fun. And the people in Philly like are so loyal to the 76ers because they put on such a good show. When Watts the Obsessed said that Ethan was found, I was surprised because I've never heard it before. Watts the Obsession has some good information about the case. She really has. And one thing I've been meaning to listen to is I believe she actually did some extensive interviews with some of the fraternity brothers at U of I. Sigma Chi fraternity members at U of I. And one of the things I heard is they were looking for Dave. You know, Dave, who we don't talk about much anymore, the guy who called. Christy says, I heard he used the ladder because he couldn't open the door. Oh, that morning. Christy, where did you hear that? Let me know. Jeff says, I bet there are photos of people partying up on the ledge. There are. There's a video where there's someone up on that ledge that you'd need a ladder to go or go out the window. They partied on the roof of Jack D's house, right? They did. And I've seen pictures of that. I've seen them. I keep saying I've seen. I saw this guy on the roof with a backpack on at the King Road home. And it was, I believe it was I think it was the day they went to Jack D's, and then they decided to take the walk over, and you see them when the house comes into frame, and then when they walk up, they get off the roof. It might not have been that body cam footage, but it was definitely a body cam footage. I saw people on the roof of the 1122 King Road home. And then Nina says, yes, that morning, it's back to the ladder. We all want to know Hunter wanted his money back, confronted Ethan with a golf club. I never heard that before, David. Take that down until I verify it. You should have investigated where the red Jeep that was parked, which was Ethan's, where it was, and should have been found more video of it. They might get more info of what happened that night. I think that about everything, like the runners, the guy in the dumpster, like everyone. And I know that everybody is like, well, the timeline is 4 a.m., but we don't know everything about the location. You would think you'd spread that net as wide as possible, especially when you have like $1 million in extra funding to handle the case. We've got some good links in here that talk about the tenor. Oh, and then Nina says, I have a video called Ladder explaining everything from Stacy Chapin. I'm going to star that and get back to it if we have time, because I think that would be a really interesting video to show. Do I think the defense is going to question DM and BK if they have the right to refuse? Don't know what the law is asking. As far as I understand, if you're subpoenaed to court, this is what I learned from the little Woody testimony. If you guys remember my last live stream, we were watching the Young Thug and YSL RICO trial. And so, like, you're only allowed to plead the fifth on things that incriminate you. So, like, for example, they asked little Woody how old he was. And he was like, I'm grown. And they're like, what number? He's like, I plead the fifth. And Bruce Rivers, the attorney that was reviewing it when we were watching, he stops it and he's like, you can't plead the fifth on your age. You can only plead the fifth on things that incriminate you. So that's an interesting thing. So I don't know if they can. I mean, they'd be held in contempt of court if they were called to testify and didn't. So I actually had something else on that. It's interesting you bring that up because I actually have an article, right? I'm not going to read it right now, but I'm going to show it to you because this is another thing Heather sent me. Heather, who's been sending us all this information just right now, sent me this article right on that subject you're talking about. Oops, that's not it. That is the search warrant, that is Bryan's segment, which we might get to, although we are still behind. Right here. This one call, it says, source, surviving Idaho roommate thought noise was partying. And when Heather first sent me this article, now I was telling you we were talking about major media sources who put out information just a few days after the arrest. This was one of the ones I was going to bring up because I went into this article thinking it was about BF and it was actually about DM. And the reason I brought it up is because it's like it says it's an exclusive source, of course, but it's like a totally different account than what we hear in the PCA, a different tone, a different everything. So anyway, we'll read that in a second, but why don't I get back to this? Why don't I get back to the podcast and I'll tell you what else is in it. And then we're going to, there's just a few more things. You definitely want to hear it. And I think this goes back to what Chad was saying earlier. You do see it. I don't know if it feels like she had a crush on him, but it does feel like she was fond of him, or she definitely didn't find him creepy or unattractive. You definitely get that. And she wanted to come out and say that because she wanted to just give another, just say that she didn't have the same experience as what this other person's coming out and saying. So, so what she went on to say, this is really interesting. So we'll get to the profiling survey we talked about. So we talked about the DeSales University. It has been brought up that he talked about this survey as well at WSU. She says she never remembers anything about the survey and she never read anything about the survey. This is really interesting. What makes sense to her the least is his cell phone pings. So it's not just the cell phone pings, during the crime scene, but the cell phone pings afterwards and in the days before. And the reason why she says that is that's how people get caught. And she said that this is criminology 101, like 101. And the fact that that's not her words, those are mine. And the fact that he returned to the scene with his phone on is odd to her and it doesn't make sense. She confirms without a doubt that, that this was in their area of study. This is one of the first things they learn is that and alibi. And we'll get back to that in a second. She did say a few things. So the days afterwards, she said there was a difference. She noted it, but again, she didn't think of him as a suspect at the time either. She didn't think of him as a suspect until they named him. She did not once think of him. But she said, in retrospect, looking back, there were some differences, and she will note that. She said his eyes were different again. And he seemed a little bit, he was a very clean shaven guy with his hair always done. She said he looked a little more unshaven. She doesn't remember him ever discussing the murders. She said his eyes were like a little sunken in and black. Now, after the murder, she switched majors and she started going to a new campus. She did not know the victims, but she participated in all their memorials. So looking back, what stands out to her in retrospect? Let me take this down. So she's confused. She doesn't know what to make of it. So many things. Again, the pings and returning to the scene. She's not convinced. She's not convinced yet, and she said she could go either way when it comes to his guilt or innocence. If there was an alibi, it would make sense to her, she says. That's the criminology 101. But the fact that there's no alibi just doesn't make sense. And I mean, I think that I've heard that from many other really, smart YouTubers before. It's like, okay, why aren't the basics covered? We've got somebody who was, appears to be almost a miracle worker with their lack of DNA. And again, we've heard other unalivings where there was no DNA, but a violent quadruple unaliving where you have to enter and leave the home and no DNA and no blood trail evidence leaving the home and no trace evidence in the car. So we think to ourselves, oh, well, he's a criminology major. That makes a lot of sense. That's how he did that. But criminology 101 says have an alibi and don't let your phone ping before, after, and during it. Well, not during, but nearly right after the crime scene. She's leaning towards he did it, but she is holding her judgment that he didn't do it too. Anything you'd like, and then the podcaster asked if there was anything she'd like to set the record straight for. And she said, before the crime, people make him out that he had nothing going for him. She said, that is straight up lies. He had a life. He was at his goals. He had so much of his future ahead of him. And to say that he didn't is straight out lies. It's not like he's a weird outsider dude that had nothing going for him. Her and all of her classmates couldn't even imagine being where he was. It's just an interesting thought. And remember, again, I don't know what we trust and what we don't trust from the Bloom article, but he appeared to get this information from either Martinez or one of the students. And he said, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Oh yeah, he didn't want to be a cop. He wanted to be a scientist. So I want to say a couple things. Since I really reviewed the entire podcast, which I've linked below, please go listen to it for yourself. Maybe you'll surmise something different. But I just want to say who participated in it. So it was Stephanie Lydecker, Courtney Armstrong, Gabriel Costello, and it is produced by KT Studios and iHeartRadio. So I encourage you to go check it out at Spotify. It's really good. Let me just get my my program up. I just lost the page, sorry. All right, so I'm going to go to this article about exculpatory information because we sort of got into it, and I'm really interested in this latter video. But I also have that, and we still wanted to talk a little bit about change of venue. It might be a good time to just tie that in. Rather than talking about change of venue, let me just bring up one thing after hearing that podcast. I mean, so, oops, that's the wrong thing. Oh my gosh. I wish I had a producer. So here we go. We have a jury trial set to commence. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to read. The defense motion to change venue is currently set to be heard on August 29th, 2024. If the motion is granted, the court anticipates the trial dates should not change, though the trial would. So, I mean, we've now heard from somebody else local, not in Latah County, but within 10, 12 minutes from the crime. She was so deeply affected, she changed her manger. What do you think? Like, for the people who are so close to this, do you think that there should be a change of venue? Do you think they can remain as neutral as this girl? Maybe it's because she was closer to him and spent time, alone with him. She didn't quite see him as maybe the monster, so to speak, that other people do. Do you think he can get a fair trial? Do you think this person's opinion is indicative of how he'll be treated, or is this person's opinion the exception and the other student who's critical of BK, maybe their opinion is the norm? I'd love to know what you guys think. I wonder if you put money on Kohberger's books at the jail. I don't know. That's a good question. Is that what he's eating, is beans and rice? I mean, I would imagine he needs money for commissary. I don't know. You know who did a video on that was JLR. And I thought it was totally irrelevant until your question. So, if AR, if you're watching, let us know. Can BK take money on the books? AR has insight knowledge on that particular facility. Mina says, Hunter checked Ethan's pulse and kept Hunter and Maisie from seeing Ethan. I hope and I pray that he did. I hope Hunter Chapin didn't go in that room. I mean, I hope Maisie didn't either, but how do you hold a grown man back? You can probably hold a grown woman, but Jessica D says he could have that look because he did see something horrific. It doesn't mean he saw it only after the crime. Yeah, that's what I meant. And I think you're referencing when we were talking about Hunter at the Service for Life. And that's what the law enforcement person was telling me, is that, they've seen horrible carnage and this person looked like they had experienced it as well, in their opinion. I totally hear you. I watch when I watch like YouTube on my big screen TV in the living room, and when I walk in and my husband's watching my podcast, it is so embarrassing when your face is like this big. Which Hunter checked them? Too many Hunters and Jacks. It was Hunter J. And Hunter J's had ties to that house. It's rumored that he was, very close to Kaylee. He also dated a girl who had a room there, who had Dylan's room previously, and had been one of the roommates. This is an interesting comment. SG and Christy flat out said they don't always state truths. That way they know when somebody has legit info. Well, I haven't heard that, Heather. What I've heard is this. I'm not pushing back on you. I'm just saying all I've heard, and I'm going to read it to you because I have it at my fingertips. I did not hear that they said they would say lies. This is what I heard them say. Let me take it down for a sec. They go, we maintain a few different narratives close to our chest that help us understand if a said source has knowledge that we have heard from direct sources. In a situation where information is sealed, closed, gagged, and redacted, these small details help us discern whether someone knows true details related to the case or simply spreading online speculation. I've heard that they omit. So, I mean, I never heard them say they hold the right to lie or something, but I heard that from that, I'm inferring that they are holding the right to omit information, but I could be mistaken. Somebody can go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. It's an interesting question. I never heard anyone ask. Did HJ check Xana's pull through on Ethan? What about Kaylee and Maddie? Did they check them? I heard early on, and I've never heard it before, but the accounts were that BF found the girls upstairs. That came from Batanti, allegedly. It was printed in the Mirror. Thanks for stopping by. I'm confused by this one, but I'll just read it out loud, see what you guys get. There were 2 of Ethan's cars parked there in the morning, and Hunter came with the second one. That's what I heard. So Ethan had 2 cars. And then I would wonder, if he did, were both cars taken in to be searched? Okay, Christy says, I think if they came to the room like Hunter found, I would check the pulse of the person closest to me and not walk through the rim over the you-know-what to check someone's pulse. Well, let's hope that a young adult, the thought would cross to them to not disturb the crime scene. I think number 1 is making sure people are alive and helping them. But if the condition of Xana is what we heard, I don't know. I would think so too, but I could go either way. Angel D says, remember Papa Rogers? The Elantra is the red herring. Papa Rogers would say that. But that makes a lot of sense. The last topic, Thought Riot, was police might have looking for weapon and sheath to different weapon. Was interesting. I heard they're going to be back real soon, so everybody keep their eyes open for TRP. I know I'm going to lose all my mods to TRP when they come back. My best mods love TRP. All my mods love TRP. So if you guys don't know who they are, that's Thought Riot Podcast. Just make sure you go check them out. They've been on hiatus for a little while, but they're coming back, and they do a really nice true crime talk show. I heard that the Chapins had 2 cars. So Hunter and Maisie, that would make perfect sense if you've got triplets in school. That doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility. Have them together in a black SUV. He earned his Associates of Arts degree in psychology from Northampton Community College in 2018. Where was Ethan's body? Was he halfway? Okay, let's just move on to this, you guys. I mean, it's clearly as intriguing to you guys as it has been for the rest of my subscribers. Okay. I remember the original November interview. Mrs. Chapin said it was Maisie and Hunter who called and told them about Ethan. They must have been the first parents to know, in my opinion. But the other thing I remember hearing, okay, so I'm going to just build on what you're saying and love to know what you guys think. So when the G's started to explain why they didn't get to questioning by the police until later in the night. When they first said that Maddie was the target, a lot of people said, well, they believe that because Maddie's parents were being interviewed for so long and they were in there. And then by the time they got to the Chapins, it was just a considerable amount of time. So they thought that maybe they were trying to interview the parent of the people they thought was the target. But then somebody pushed back and said, no, it was because the Mogans showed up first. And I don't know if it was first, meaning before the G's, or just first in general. But I do know that they had Maddie's parents in there interviewing her. And it's so hard to say. I mean, because we also talk about Jasmine and Xana's father were basically leaving and turned around to come back or something along those lines. So I don't know. But what an interesting question. Do you guys know which parents found out first, or which parents were interviewed first? Because if it's not proximity in timing, it would have been strategic. So if they did interview Maddie's parents first, there might have been a reason for that. And when we hear Maddie was the target, it might not just be because somebody is so smart at analyzing crime scenes. Maybe they actually had some inside knowledge, whether we want to admit it or not. Black SUV is what they came in. Jeff says, interesting that Moscow, Idaho had not recorded a murder in 7 years. New York Times quote. I wonder if the New York Times used Howard Blooms as their source. Richie Rich, till this day, just blows my mind on how the two other remaining twins can go back to school the same way. God forbid we're ever in this position. Like, I know Mrs. Chapin gets so much pushback, but like, oh my God, she fought to have her kids not. I mean, they're going to be jaded and scarred from this for the rest of their life, but she fought them to get them back into normalcy. And I think that sometimes maybe she did it at the expense of her own self. You know, I don't know. It is weird, but also they faced their fears and their pain really quickly. And my hat, you know, they're in my prayers. Maybe that was, who knows whose healing process is going to be better in the long run. But yeah, you know, I think about it too. There's another family member who went right back to school. I don't like saying his name on this show, but there's a younger brother to the girls that attend school too. And we try to keep his name off of YouTube, but it's been coming up a lot because of all this strange stuff going on with leaks. But yeah, a little brother to one of the girls attends school there too. He's got a pretty well-known name, so I just don't want to say it out loud. It's obviously not just the Chapins. And then Jasmine went back to WSU right afterwards too. I don't know what you're supposed to do in these situations. The Kohberger continued his studies at DeSales University in Center Valley, Pennsylvania, where he graduated in 2020 with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in criminal justice last year being 2022. Yeah. People could have been in the trees using Eco Shield. What's that? Hold on, let me look it up. Eco Shield. It's pest control. Okay. Well, they also said she called 911. But then when I show you guys, you know, this letter, it says that her phone wasn't working starting at 2:56. So I don't know. Well, I lost track of where it was. Death Valley Tiger. And then he says, yeah, we got that one up there in 2018, just to elaborate on Death Valley. I think that he went to Northampton for some time too. And then Nina says, the door had a digital lock, so it locked automatically. And I just want to back up what Nina's saying. She actually got this confirmed 3 days ago. She spoke with, and we're not going to say his name on this channel. Again, very close ties to YouTube, and we're not trying to ruffle feathers. You can go to Nina Kelly's channel if you want to fill in the blanks of everything I'm saying. But she spoke with an ex-roommate, actually a boy who lived in the King Road house a year prior. So she didn't just take his TikToks and his posts. She spoke with him, and he confirmed. They were trying to make it so each room was like a mini apartment, and they all had separate locks, separate codes. They were unrelated to each other. And she also confirmed with him it was a co-ed housing before it was female housing, which kind of takes away, we always thought it was just female housing, and maybe it was a target because it was sorority housing, but it was male housing too. Wait, Jessica D says you took screenshots. Can you send them to you? Yes. You know what? The easiest thing to do, why don't I just give me a second, you guys. I'm going to pull up Discord and put an invite in there to my server. So if anyone wants to join the server, you can go ahead. Anyone's allowed to join my server for right now until I have members again, but just please don't, you're not allowed to mention or call out any other creators by name on the general server. But other than that, you're welcome, and I would love for anyone to come and join our chat, because we do kind of like an after party. Where the heck is the invite? Hold on. Thread notification. Oh, here we go. Invite people. Copy. All right, so I'm dropping my server in the chat, and whatever you want to send me, Jessica, that's a great place to post it, because you know, it's a safe place for us to post things. And if I don't get to it this show, whatever you're sending me, certainly save it for the next. Although I want to make this show private because I had the worst opening scene ever, but that's okay. It's just YouTube. Ugh. Hold on. Stacy Chapin said in January of 2023 that Hunter was happy to go back, and Maisie was warming up to the idea. Poor Maisie. Oh, that breaks my heart. I mean, as a female, it's not just, I mean, she thinks of her brother, but her own personal safety has to be in her, in the back of her mind. All right, let's. I'm going to read you guys that article, I think, the one that I was showing you from Heather that talks about the exculpatory evidence that ends at Bethany, but it's actually Dylan. I don't know. I learned about it on Bubbly Waters channel, and a couple of my subscribers actually brought it up, but I haven't educated myself on the subject to have an opinion yet. Richie Rich says, when is the days that cops came for a noise complaint and guys opened the door and said, that's none of the homeowners are here? The cop asks, this is a Sigma Chi house. And it was. It was. Nina confirmed it. Yeah, because this person that was a sorority, yeah, okay. It was a fraternity brother with, I'm gonna say less, because again, I was just refraining from bringing up names on here, but the Chapins weren't the only other family members. What? Karen Reed trial? There's Karen Reed trial stuff going on right now? Oh my gosh. Yeah, they have good evidence that Jack is not involved. So I was told. But who really knows anything? They that night Jack came over, according to Howard Bloom's book. And that night Jack came over, and it sounds like he spoke directly with him, but I don't know. And that Steve made him shed all his clothes, and he videotaped with his cell phone. He recorded the whole thing, and he provided it to the police as evidence that he had no marks or scars on him, so he couldn't have been involved in something so gruesome. I think that was part of it. And then it was interesting because after that, that's when the book transitions to going to Hunter Johnson. And so Bloom is outright saying he's confirmed it was Hunter who found the body that morning. But the book transitions to him and Jack going and visiting Hunter Johnson. And that's when he found out that Hunter was the one who found the bodies or discovered Ethan. Yeah, Miss Anonymous, if you're still here, follow the Discord server. I was just thinking about that. Dust squared days. Subpoena is essentially in my area, and I didn't. Okay, subpoena is essentially in my area. A demand to be present. Courts can make accommodations to fearful youth, various and others ones might not show. So we're talking about if somebody had to testify. I think you're talking about when I was kind of jokingly talking about how little Woody in the YSL, in the Young Thug YSL trial, refused to tell, he pled the fifth when they asked him his age. And the attorney's like, you can only plead the fifth if it could incriminate you. But so I'm thinking this is what this subpoena is for. A subpoena is essentially in my area, demand to be present. Courts can make accommodations for fearful youth, various other reasons they might show. So I guess what D Square is kind of saying, like say Bethany was scared. Let's just say she was scared. Let's say it had to relate to, she has exculpatory evidence and all these theories that we haven't even brought up. Maybe one of them was true with the drugs and everything. And she was scared to testify. So like it wasn't incriminating her, but she was just scared. What D Square is saying, they make accommodations within the court so that that person can be safe. I think that's what you mean by that. Anyway, I don't know. I haven't heard that data on the phone doesn't support the claim. I've heard that the casting, well, I don't know. I'm sorry. When I say data, I think metadata. And if anyone doesn't know, this is kind of a back and forth that Heather and I have about casting versus metadata. And I'm going to turn off Discord because it won't stop making noises. I just want you guys to not keep getting interrupted. Okay, so alibi. You don't need an alibi when evidence will prove where you are. Did I get through all of this? I didn't, you guys. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. And I had this bookmark too. I don't know what's going on with my ex. I might have saved all my BK stuff under Karen Reed because I'm like not finding any of my bookmarks. But this was one of them. And I really want to talk about this for a second. So there, depression, question mark. There's evidence potentially stating that meds have had several side effects. In my opinion, meds are problematic. So I think you're referencing for the staying up late at night, but let's just talk about meds for a second. Again, one of those pushbacks I saw in X to the Bloom book was this whole visual snow dilemma that we talk about and how this really sounds like a sociopath when you hear these things, because you hear things like, I know I should feel for my father, but I don't. I know he's a good man. I wish I felt something for him. Him feeling like, you know, he doesn't have any love for his family, or he's just going through the motions of life, and that he could get away with so many things because he has no remorse. But if you really read beyond some of those visual snow posts, read all of his tap to talk posts, he clearly states it's not the visual snow that's making him depressed. It's not the visual snow that's making him numb and isolated and unable to feel. It's the medication he's on. And so I don't know if that's what you were necessarily referencing, or if you were talking about someone staying up late, but I think that that's really important, because we take a big, broad step when we read those things in those visual snow messaging boards. But it makes a lot more sense when you find out he was actually being treated for it. He wasn't like on, like, you know, trying to self-diagnose himself on Google. He was working with a medical professional and was on medication for it. He wasn't hiding his head in the sand. Anyway. Oh, I'm glad you went over the Young Thug trial. So interesting. Howard Bloom's book says that their faces were untouched. It does. It says all 4 of their beautiful faces were untouched, except we know that that's not true in Kaylee's case. She said Ethan and Xana. He said Ethan and Xana. And I mean, that's so hard to believe, because I think they were cremated due to their injuries. That's why I couldn't have an open casket. And think of it like that. It's a good point. I don't know. With a young and beautiful person, you would think that they'd have an open casket to say goodbye, but there's another thing, which is, I guess I didn't really realize it, but some people are really against open casket. My mother passed on in 2019, and I found that out, like, just several deaths in my family. Like, some people want the open casket in the wake and then closed casket at the funeral, because sometimes some people feel it's inappropriate or something. So I don't know why I'm trailing off. Like I said, too much coffee today. Didn't like the book at all. I didn't read it for pleasure. I speed read the book, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about it. I should probably go back and read it, but it just kind of breaks my heart, so I don't want to. I just sent that Bloom was in the news again. He called, wait. I just sent that Bloom was in the news again. Steve called him a liar again, and Bloom got, oh, good Lord. Let me retrieve this for you guys. Let's spill some tea. Oh, welcome Willow and new people to the server, you guys. Hold on. Let me find what Heather sent me. Heather, where did you send it to me? Discord? Hold on. Here we go. No, wait. Oh, okay. So you're sending me, so that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into this. So it's one of the victims did take a plea deal on something, and this is on Bubbly's channel, and I just want to tell you who's sending this to me. So, well, this is obviously not your YouTube name, so I'm not going to share it. But yeah, Bubbly Waters has some info on Kaylee and Maddie, and it's really interesting. I don't have enough to talk about it right now on the fly. Not that I couldn't talk about it, that I just don't want to talk about it until I've gone and looked it up for myself, because that's just kind of how I do things. But thank you so much for sending that to me. It's really interesting. All right, let's keep going. Well, he also says a bit based off of other things. So they name some names in it. And like, I mean, I wasn't counting. So Heather had asked me the other night, does he name 300 witnesses in it? And I mean, I do remember him giving some names, saying how they helped in the book, but in general, he talked about what type of sources that he had. And FBI agents, law enforcement agents, people close to the friends and families of the victims and the accused. The thing I found so fascinating about that is hearing that Catherine Ramsland contacted the families. And it has nothing to do with the case, but, well, maybe it does. I mean, she is a very famous criminology professor. She called and she said that Bryan was one of her best students ever, and she wanted to lend herself to the Kohbergers in any way she could. And they did end up calling her that night. Bryan was saying he wanted to waive his extradition hearing and just go straight to Pennsylvania. And she agreed with Bryan, is what the parent said, that she said there was no point in him waiting. He should be transferred. There's no point in fighting it because he ultimately would be. So there was even an example. And she said she would be there moving into the future, and she was going to wait to form opinions until she had all of the information. And if she was the one who told that to Howard Bloom, that's an incredibly impressive thing to go on the record saying. Okay. Oh, thank you. I like reading it over there. Thank you, Winchell. That's so sweet. Oh, Nina. Okay. You know, there's so many things we wanted to get to. I feel like, oh, wait, the video explaining 8 hours, explaining CCTV. It's an 8-hour video. Christy saying, did you see Tommy's live with Andrew? You know what? I don't know who was there. I'm trying to remember. It was the Mama something from 11/11 True Crime, and Golf Inspector General was there, I believe. And there was one other person on the panel. I can't remember, but I was just looking for live streams. I was making dinner or something. I don't remember what it was. No, it was later than that. It must have been like, I don't remember what I was doing. But Tommy was like one. I just go to my subscriber list and see who's live, and Tommy was live, and I hadn't seen one of his lives in a while, so I went on, and it was just such an interesting conversation. And I'll just repeat it for those joining. She was basically saying that back in the Stephen Avery case, there were literally people paid to come on and misinform YouTube. Oh, you're talking about Andrew Myers? No, that must be what you're talking about. I didn't see that one. I saw some highlights from it in one of Rolo's videos. But yeah, so this person last night on Tommy's live was saying that in the Stephen Avery case, there were paid people to come control the narrative. And she said, you know, I wouldn't have believed it, but I saw the spreadsheets myself, end quote. I was like, what? And I thought to myself, if the Stephen Avery case, now I could see where that one had some paid, because if it wasn't LE, I mean, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar series on Netflix. So yeah, there were some pockets there, but I don't know if they're talking about law enforcement or if they're talking about just trolls. But I would love to know more. So if anyone's ever heard of paid people on YouTube to control the narrative regarding Stephen Avery, I'd like to know, because it would explain a lot of things, because you just can't figure out how trolls have so much free time on their hands to make up things. He has a temporal based, usually alibi. I can't tell you how many miles I put on my car driving to get out in those years. CA was much stricter. Don't forget that it wasn't this open. I know, I gotta check. Okay. I'll go look at, let's bring Nina's channel up. Hold on. I'm interested too. I gotta see this dang ladder video. Especially if the people are on there talking about the ladder being used. I like keep yawning. I'm sorry. I'm crashing. Hold on, I gotta put the video too. I don't want to dox myself. Just hold on 1 second. Okay. All right. What are we looking for here? I don't see the letters. Would it be in your shorts? I don't know which one it is, Nina. Well, let me go to the comments. Oh, you never had one of your videos played by another creator? Nina, I don't know which one it is. I really want to play it. Can you tell me the title, please? I noticed the ladder was in a common area of Sigma. The IDAHO4 play in an IDAHO4 playlist. Oh, so it's not your, it's your video though, right? Hold on, let me go back. Playlist. Hello, Sebastian, IDAHO4. Wait, is it Unfiltered Lucky's video? Nina, tell me then, if you could please tell me, hi puppy, I'm sorry. If you could please tell me the name of the video.
Okay, Nina Kelly again. So let's see.
Hold on. Let me go to my chat. It's called The Ladder. I can't see it. What the heck? Hold on. The Ladder. I know, puppy. I'm sorry. I know, baby. Hold on. My dog has, you guys, let me show you this. I feel bad for this dog. He has my shoe. Oh, puppy. Just like saying, take me for a walk and dog. If you don't have a dog. The Ladder. Are you sure this is listed? I'm puppy. Let me go back.
Hey, yeah, Nina Kelly.
Nina.
Just a video to
You know
make you
what?
say.
You know what would work, Nina, is if you actually sent it to me in Discord, because then I could just follow the link. Hi, baby. I don't see it, you guys. Stop it, Rocco. Stop it, Rocky. I know, puppy. Hold on. All right, well, I can't find it, but you guys, you obviously know where Nina Kelly's channel is. You saw all those fabulous videos she has. I was really tempted to show that one that we were just talking about, but I'm not going to. But please go check out her channel and find that ladder video because I want to know more. I love talking about the ladder. And you know what? I'll guarantee you right now, since I'm cutting this short, and we shaved off a few of the things we were going to talk about because we were doing so much live chat. We're going to do an entire segment on the ladder in my next live stream. So just so you know, I came up with a new live streaming schedule. So I'm going to be doing Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing like other live streams at nighttime with other people. I might do dual streaming onto my channel, but in general, you're going to be able to find me on Mondays and Fridays at 10. And the reason I'm doing that is I actually have a couple more. So like as I was telling you before, right now, the only way I'm making money on YouTube is I have sponsorships. I don't actually make money off of advertisements on my videos. And I have a sponsorship coming up from a wonderful jewelry company, which I will be announcing next week. I also have, I am part of the Amazon influencer program, and they've hand selected this channel to, or me to do some influencer stuff for them on Prime Week. So I don't know if I'm going to stream any of this channel because it's kind of not really about true crime, but I'm going to be on a schedule next week. So aside from the Mondays and Friday live streams, we're probably going to do a Monday and either a Thursday or a Monday and a Friday video as well. And then Stop It Rocco, I'll stream onto other channels. Anyway, I'll be announcing more to come, and you've all been wonderful. Oh, Dean, it's so nice to see you. Hey, AR. Don't forget to go visit Stop It Rocco, AR's channel. AR is going to be live tonight with Unfiltered Lucky. I'm so excited to see their show. And that is at 7 Eastern time. Hold on, let me go to AR's channel. I will definitely be there in the chat. That's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm one of his mods. I'm only mod to 2 people, 12 and AR. So it's kind of a big deal to me. All right, so it is today at 7 p.m. and it is called, I don't know what it's called. I thought it had a name, but apparently I thought it was called like the Boomers and the something. Anyway, so go check out AR's live stream with Lucky tonight. Please give AR some support because he always supports this channel, and I appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to play an outro, and I'm going to call it a day. I appreciate everyone showing up, and if you're not used to my show, I'm just playing a little outro music and showing some photographs from the podcast in the last couple of weeks. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for all of your energy. The chat is awesome, and you guys really make the show wonderful with all of your comments and questions. And I just can't thank you enough for your insight. And don't forget to check out Nina Kelly's video too. So with that, I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you Friday at 10. And